and then working out where the story had come from and what the parallels were in other books of the Bible, and indeed between the Old and New Testament. I enjoyed it very. It was my first effort as a literary critic, I now realized. And the language of the King James Bible and the Cranmer Prayer Book is very important to me. One day, though, Mrs. Watts went too far. She tried to marry her role as nature teacher and scripture teacher, and she said, "Children, you see how God is good. He's made all the vegetation a lovely green colour, which is the colour most restful to our eyes. And imagine how horrible our lives would be if it was all purple or orange all the time." And I was 9, I think, and I thought, can I say this on your show? That's a child could see through this. Of course that's not true. So she's claiming to know more than she possibly could. Then I noticed, I thought, well, why would she? And I thought, well, I can see why that would be, because the same as the headmaster. If he appears in front of us holding the Bible every morning, it gives him authority in the real world, the here and now, never mind the hereafter. Who wouldn't? If they could enhance their power by pretending to be doing God's work, who wouldn't do it? Mm-hmm. So I was getting the essential information in my cortex at quite a young age.
Is that the moment that you identified yourself first as an atheist?
Wouldn't have known the word.
Right.
Wouldn't have known
At what point did you embrace that term?
I certainly had. That's how I know the feeling that many people have, that they're the only one. They're surprised to find that millions of people have had similar experiences, as we all have. Mm-hmm. But I started then to object to being made to pray, and I found it anyway objectionable to be forced to say every morning that I was a wretched, worthless sinner. I thought, what is
Even
this?
though you may have been.
Even though the possibility exists that it could have been true. Well, here's the paradox of it, and I think it's a very unwholesome one. You're told first that you're made of nothing but the dust of the earth, and that you're born into sin and corruption, and you've committed crimes were committed by you before you were born. You're stuck with this, so you're saturated in guilt and shame as a little boy. But there's a compensating factor. The universe is designed with you in mind. After all, you are terribly important. You can be the most egomaniacal person you like, after all. Completely self-centered. The universe was designed with you in mind, and God has a plan for you. That makes up for it a bit. Both of these claims are highly unhealthy as well as utterly untrue.
And in conflict?
Well, I think one is designed as a compensation for the other.
Is that what it is?
Yes, I think so.
Right.
You terrify somebody. It's sadomasochism. You terrify somebody first, and you say, now I've really shaken you and upset you and given you bad dreams and told you about hell.
So here's this other thing.
I've got a real as long as you'll transfer your money to my church, and as long as you'll agree to do as I say on a number of other things, that's fine. Right. Well, I think this is positively immoral. I think it's actually actively wicked, as well as palpably false.
So there was no point at which you played the game. At no point did you sort of test this out, dip your toe in the water, say, well, let me see if I feel like this is for me. So you were not someone who tried out various faiths or one faith and then rejected it.
No, nothing like that. No, right. No. I mean, I studied them all, right. And I still do. And it's still, to me, a great department of learning, right. Because it's what precedes philosophy. Mm-hmm. Philosophy starts where religion ends, but you have to know where the break point comes. You
make a distinction in the book. I don't know that it's a distinction exactly, but you use the terms differently. Religion is one, but God worship is a phrase that I found interesting in the book. Explain the difference, or tell me there's no difference between the two.
I should perhaps underscore the distinction better. Yeah. I mean, you can, like my subject of biography, I'm a biographer in a small way of Thomas Jefferson. Right. He was a deist in that he thought that there must be or have been a creator. Right. Very common opinion in the late 18th century, early 19th century. The order and majesty of the universe, the rhythms of nature, this can't just be a chemical reaction, or must be a designer. But he didn't think that designer cared about or intervened in human affairs. So he believed in God, but he was not really religious. Deism is not a religion. Right. It still seems logical to many people that there must be a designer. But it's a huge step to say the designer cares what you eat or who you go to bed with. And why is it such a huge step? Because you have to claim to know the mind of God. Now, I know this much. I know that nobody does know that. Okay. I'm a mammal. I've never met another mammal who I think of as able to make that claim. I've met mammals much smarter than myself.
And you've met mammals who have claimed to be able to make that claim.
The place is rife with mammals who claim to be able to make that claim.
Right.
So it seems to be a mammalian weakness to say, not only do I know that God exists, but I happen to be able to inform you what he would now like you to do. And furthermore, since I'm acting for him, I'm the one who's going to tell you. Right. I say, no, just hold it right there. I will not be, put it as politely as possible, spoken to in that tone of voice by anybody.
You've been described actually as an atheist, but also as an anti-theist.
It's my self-definition.
Self-definition. So is there a similar distinction there?
No, it's just a refinement, if you like.
Right.
You could be an atheist and wish it were otherwise. I think, well, I've certainly met people who say they wish it were true. They tried to believe it, they just couldn't make themselves. It flies in the face of so much contrary evidence.
Right.
And there's no evidence on its side, so pity about that, but can't believe it. I don't see it's a pity at all, because if it were true that there was a divine, celestial, all-powerful person who kept me under constant invigilation, supervision, surveillance from the moment I was conceived until, well, forever, because I can't escape from him even by dying. That's when the fun really begins. You get the option of going to somewhere which, when I was even quite small, paradise, I mean, that sounded to me like hell, a place of eternal praise of someone who had only done his job by creating you. But
right.
You had to keep thanking him forever. Sounds like hell to me. Or worse, eternal torment for a crime you probably hadn't known at the time you were even committing.
Right.
These are the origins of totalitarianism. This is a wish for...
These are the choices that you're being...
This is a wish for unending slavery. Right. No, I don't share it, and therefore I'm very relieved that there is no evidence for it, no reason to believe it's true.
I want to talk about Iraq here in a second, but I want to ask about Salman Rushdie first, which may be an interesting segue. You consider Rushdie a good friend, and he considers you a good friend, and you were actually quite moved to speak out when the fatwa, the liberal fatwa against Salman Rushdie was ordered, and that was a pretty significant moment in terms of your view of religion, was it not?
It was my 9/11, if you like, 14th of February 1989.
Explain.
Well, on that day, Valentine's Day 1989, it doesn't really matter that he was a friend of mine. I'm proud to say that he was and remains one. Remember exactly what happened. The theocratic head, dictator of a foreign state, the Ayatollah Khomeini, appears in public to offer money in his own name, without disguise, for the suborning of murder. Pretty extraordinary thing for a religious leader to do. For the crime of writing a work of fiction, directed at someone who isn't even an Iranian, who lives in London. Now, this is a pretty frontal assault on everything that I believe in and value. Free expression, free inquiry, the right of the individual to be free of state terror, all of this. And I thought, it was the first time I thought, well, they're trying to change our regime, our society. Well, they mustn't be allowed to do that, but further than that, we better have to change theirs. We can't put up with this. Yeah. That was for a later time. At the time, I noticed another thing. Okay, here you have on the one side free expression, the liberty of the individual, the right of free inquiry, the right of literary production. On the other, superstition, murder, the offer of gain for murder. And, of course, a ticket to paradise, naturally, thrown in. And an offer of virgins to young men who mostly, as far as I can see, actually are virgins. Sick, repressed young men who've had their sex lives ruined by religion as well as everything else. Okay, pretty horrible. Where are the churches coming out on this? Well, the Pope said the problem was Salman Rushdie had committed blasphemy. The Archbishop of Canterbury said the problem was Salman Rushdie had committed blasphemy. The Chief Rabbi of Israel said the problem was Salman Rushdie had committed blasphemy. They all lined up in effect with the Ayatollah. So that's also part of my answer to your question was, I shouldn't judge religion by its fringe adherents.
Right. Let me ask about Iraq in the remaining time we have left. You have very famously been a supporter of the war and have refused, in the face of criticism and of people who were like you, supporters of the war, backing down. You've refused to change your position. You continue to be a supporter of the war.
I think Iraq is a keystone state to which we owe a large number of debts, partly because of past policy errors going back through several administrations, that it would be absolutely unthinkable to abandon the Iraqi people to al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia. They demonstrate every day what would happen to the Iraqis if we withdrew, and to ourselves. It seems to me elementary. I prefer to say the word struggle rather than war. It's a struggle between my Iraqi and Kurdish friends, or rather my Arab and Kurdish Iraqi friends, and their allies. That's us, their friends. That's you and me, I hope, against barbarism. Call it a struggle. Saying stop the war sounds better, means you're anti-war, which is sort of okay. But if you just change it by one word, and not very much, what it says is surrender. It's not worth fighting over. Let the other side win.
Well,